Hey everybody, it's Brian Loans here in my home garage. Normally you're listening to me tell a story about history, but it's freezing cold, it's wintertime, and here I am with an old tractor. This is my N-Series Ford. You've seen it if you've watched some of my really old videos about like putting the Dearborn plow on it and some other stuff. It's been an ongoing project. I've had the tractor for several years. I love it. I've always loved old tractors. My dad had a N-Series Ford. He had a 52 8N when I was growing up with a front end loader bucket on it. So I've always had an affinity for these things, and it's been a really fun kind of process to tinker on this tractor. Everything from redoing the ignition and electrical system to having a cylinder head flattened out and trued up and reinstalled. I did that a couple of years ago. It's a neat piece. It's actually a mix of 8N, 2N, and 9N parts. Kind of makes me like it even more. It's a bit of a mongrel. But the issue I'm kind of coming to you today with is the hydraulics on this thing have quit working. And as you can tell, it is wintertime here in New England, and there's snow on this thing. And the reason I have it is to plow my driveway and to play in the snow with. And so it is a bit unfortunate that now it is snowing and the plow has quit working. So these tractors have a very basic hydraulic system. What we're going to go through here as I start to take it apart. But basically the situation I have is the hydraulic fluid has a ton of water in it. It's probably never been changed. If it has been changed, it was decades ago. That's a problem. Second problem is the hydraulics have actually kind of stopped working. They have not responded. They don't respond anymore to the command to lift the plow, which should be done with a 3-point hitch in the back. So when it does go up, it actually gets stuck up and won't come down. So basically there's a valve in this system. When we take it apart, I'll show you that I believe is the problem. Now, I don't know, but that's going to be the magic of this. So we're going to start to take it apart now. I'll take you through the tractor a little bit, and then through the magic of my handy dandy camera work, hopefully I walk you through this process. Should be reasonably simple. It's a very basic machine, and it's always fun working in freezing cold temperatures. So a quick look at this thing before we get going and talk about some of the mongrel elements of it. For starters, it is a Dearborn plow in the front, put it on a few years ago. Now you'll note that it does have the Ford 2N cowl on it. So that would denote that it was a 1942 model year tractor. But it does have the Ford 8N engine in it, which would denote it was made between 48 and 52. And then we get here and we can see both the foot pegs, which you would find on a 2N or 9N, and the running board style steps that you would find on an 8N. Then you will find a 4-speed transmission, which was in the 8N. The 2N and 9N had 3 speeds, and that auxiliary lever you see over there is pretty neat. That's actually the lever to a Hupp under overdrive transmission, which in low gear will allow this thing to push like a bulldozer, and in high gear supposedly allows the thing to go something like 27 miles an hour. Now the rear end, again, kind of a mystery here. It is a 2N style or 9N style, axle, and I can tell that because of the hydraulics that we're going to work on here. Also, the axle trumpets denote the same. It has fenders on it that are totally inappropriate, probably from somewhere in the 1960s. It has the kind of dash area of an 8N. I put the the tachometer kind of work meter over there. You can see the amp meter for the electrical system. So it really is a mix, pretty generous mix of all 3 style tractors, and of course it does have the 2N style wheels on the back of it as well. So all that being said, now you know the story of the tractor. Now let's get ready to start taking stuff apart. This process is going to begin right here. This inspection plate, or it's really the plate that mounts the handle to turn the power takeoff lever on and off. We're going to start on this side to take that off, and then there's an inspection plate on the other side. We're going to take both of those off right now. All right, so here's where we're going to start. We're going to take this plate off here. This is where the handle for your PTO activator lever works to turn it on and off. So we're going to pop that off right now. I've never had this one off. The other side I have. I know that one's going to come off easily. I don't know if these bolts are going to be crusted on for the million years of time they've been on the tractor, but I guess we're about to find out. Nope. Let's try this guy. Nice. All right, so I'm going to finish popping those out and give you a look inside. All right, so with our side plate off, we now move to the back of the axle of the tractor. So these 4 bolts are what hold in the PTO shaft, and you need to pull this out because the PTO shaft runs straight through the center of the hydraulic pump that we're ultimately going to take out of here. So got to back these 4 bolts out, pull the shaft out, and then that'll allow me to move to the other side of the tractor, take that inspection cover off, and then we can go underneath and open the drain plug and get all the horrible looking fluid out of there. This tractor was apparently held together by a lot of finger-tight bolts. 3. And there's 4. All right, I'm gonna pull this shaft out. All right, popped it loose with a screwdriver. I'm just gonna slide this guy out. Pro tip, make sure you get something under there because you're gonna have a lot of gross hydraulic fluid headed your way. So yeah, before I move over to this other plate, you can see it right over there underneath the lift arm. This is not what hydraulic fluid is supposed to look like. There's a little bit of oil in there now too because there's some left residually in this pan, but that is nasty. A lot of water in there. Okay, so this is that second side plate I was telling you about. It's 6 11/16 bolts. The top and the bottom are long bolts. The 4 side ones, or the 4 perimeter ones beyond that, are short. Just remember that when you put it back together again. One thing I wanted to point out on this side of the tractor, I've added a foot feeder to it, which these tractors, you know, throttle-wise, you basically had a constant steady state quadrant up here, but the foot feeder allows you to have an actual kind of foot throttle like a normal car, which is handy for situations like snow plowing and stuff like that when your hands are kind of busy. And this is the shifter for the up over underdrive. I have this kind of rudimentary lockout on it right now to keep it in basically the 1-to-1 ratio that keeps the handle from flopping around. So let's get this plate off and take a look inside. Okay, now we get a look inside here and we can see some of the guts of this thing. And what you're looking at on the left over there, that long kind of spindly horseshoe looking guy, that is actually what's supposed to be controlling the flow of the hydraulic fluid when I go to lift the lift arms up and back on the rear of the tractor. Now they are attached to a valve which is still submerged in hydraulic oil. To the right there, that is the actual hydraulic pump, which you're looking at right now. And you can tell there's actually a little rust, it looks like, on a couple of the pieces in there, telling you how impregnated the fluid was with water. And finally, the last thing you can see, if we look upward, is the lift cylinder. Now the lift cylinder, when those go bad, they start leaking fluid all over the place. Mine is good. That's why I'm not taking the top cover of this tractor off and only looking in here to the guts of it. Next step is going to be to take the drain plug out of the bottom. All right, so that big looking guy right in the center is the drain plug. It's 1 1/16" nut on the end of it to get the thing loose. So I'm going to loosen that up and drain the guts out of the area where the hydraulic pump is. And then the next thing will be dropping the pump right out of the bottom of the tractor. Okay, so before I show you what's going on right now, I want to show you this. This is the cap, which I just took off. And this is what's in the bottom of it. This stuff is nasty. It is incredibly thick paste, and for those of you that do your maintenance and stay on top of all this stuff, you get to yell at me now that I haven't done this since I've owned the tractor. I guess I was just being lazy. The double down on this is the plug is out. That stuff is so thick right now that the entire bottom hole is sealed off with gunk. That is nasty. And I think we've discovered one of the main roots of our problem. So for those of you that are like, oh yeah, of course it's all gunked up. Well, there is gunk in there, but if you can notice, that is a chunk of ice. It is totally frozen at the bottom of this thing. And again, you are responsible and well-meaning tractor owners that keep your stuff inside and change fluids on a regular basis. You're gonna laugh at me on this one, but that is a 24 karat size chunk of ice in there, and the whole bottom of this thing is frozen solid. So yeah, that's a problem. So the thawing operation's been going on a minute, and what we can see here is the control valve that I thought was bad was completely encased in ice. So the arms that were supposed to actuate the valve were frozen and actually not doing anything. I couldn't see that when I was reaching in there with my fingers when it was all frozen, but as you can see, those are all chunks of ice. And I've just been applying some heat via torch here just to warm up the case a little bit and melt some of this stuff. But it's pretty incredible. And when the whole thing's free, I'm still going to take the pump out and clean it up, but I do not think I need to replace the valve, which is kind of neat. Okay, so it is now the next day. And what I did overnight was I got one of these little cheapy shop lamp type of deals, put a heat lamp bulb in it, and using that to kind of raise the ambient temperature in our case here. The idea was to melt everything that was left over in there as far as ice goes. And if we move ourselves in here, what we're going to see is the ice is all gone. everything's melted out, and everything in here looks pretty good, including the fact that when I move my handle, I have full movement of that valve in there, which was my major problem. So because it's freezing cold and because this thing I believe is functioning properly, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to clean out the gunk in the bottom of this. I got some brushes and some solvent, and once I get all the gunk out of there, I'm going to put this thing back together, put fluid in it, and see if I can get the 3-point to work. And if it does, I'm calling it a day. This summer when it's warm out, I'll take the pump out and go through it. But if I can get it functional for the snowstorm tomorrow, that's the move. So using some solvent and brushes and a little diesel fuel and a sprayer, I knocked out virtually all the gunk I could get out of this thing. So is it perfect? No. Will it be better when it's warm out and I do take the whole pump out? Sure. But for what was in there versus what's in there now, everything's nice and clean. So next step is to slide the PTO shaft back in, start putting one of the side plates on, and I'm going to use a transfer pump to put a couple gallons of fluid in here. I don't want to fill it all the way up. I just want to get enough fluid in there to get enough circulating that I can see if the 3-point's going to work. We'll cross our fingers. All right, so I've put a couple of gallons of fluid in here. Again, not full. Going to continue that process here in a minute. But I'm going to do a quick and easy check. For those of you that know these tractors, you know this. If you don't, this may save you some time. So I have the lever now in the down position over here. So I'm going to move the lever to the up position. Okay. Now, the PTO by that shaft right there is engaged. Now, what I can do is I can move to the back of the tractor, and I can simply take the PTO shaft, move it back and forth. As long as it's engaged, it's going to move the pump. See what's happening there? As I move the shaft, the arms are lifting, which means that I am golden here. I'm going to put this thing back together, fill it up, but this is a working PTO unit again, and my only problem was a bunch of old fluid and ice and my own laziness. So again, we've been able to raise it manually. Can reach over here, watch the arms as I drop the handle. Down she goes. That is the best news I've gotten all week. All right, well, we did the manual test, but let's make sure it's going to work in the perfect world. There's a little throttle out of my handle. Ah, yes, there she goes. That is beautiful. Down. Right up again. And it's a nice day. So, my neighbors love me. Go for a test drive. That is success. We'll be plowing snow tomorrow.